I was 19, broke, and running on fumes, literally and emotionally. That day, I had driven 4 hours to a job interview that I didn't even want. I only went because my dad said I needed to start acting like a man and do something with myself. But the truth was, I didn't even know what something looked like yet. I just knew I was tired. The interview went poorly. I stammered, forgot names, forgot my own questions. The manager looked bored before I finished my second sentence. I left early, shaking his hand like I'd already been rejected. I got in my car and pulled onto the highway. The kind of stretch where there are no gas stations for miles. Just open road and occasional billboards reminding you you're not where you want to be. Then the gas light blinked on. At first, I laughed. It wasn't even panic. It was more like, of course. I figured I could coast another 20 minutes, maybe 30, and hit the next exit. But 15 minutes later, the engine coughed, sputtered, and died just past mile marker 118. It was summer. The air was thick and still. My phone battery was at 6%, and I had no charger. No money for a tow, no roadside assistance, and I was too proud to call my dad. So I just sat there. And for a moment, I thought, what if I just don't go back? What if I just walk away and disappear for a while? That's when the blue car pulled up behind me. It was an older woman, mid-50s, maybe early 60s, with short, curly hair and big sunglasses that made her look like someone's cool aunt. She rolled down the window and smiled like we'd met before. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked. I told her I'd run out of gas. I was trying to figure out what to do. She nodded, like this wasn't the first time she heard that story. "Well, I've got a gas can in the trunk. I'll drive to the next station and come back. You stay in the car where it's shady." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I was fine, but I wasn't. And somehow she could see that. "I can Venmo you," I started. She waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Don't worry about it. We all run out of gas sometimes." She left. I watched the taillights fade, half expecting her to never come back. But she did. 20 minutes later, with a smile, a full gas can, and a cold bottle of water that she handed me like she'd been waiting to give it to me all day. "You're not as stuck as you think you are," she said. "Sometimes it just feels that way." I didn't have the words to thank her properly. I filled the tank, watched the needle rise, and tried not to cry when I turned the key and the engine came back to life. She waved once and drove off. I never caught her name. I don't tell this story often. It's not dramatic. No one died. No twist ending. But I think about her more than I think about most people I've met. I think about the timing, the way she didn't hesitate, the way she didn't make me feel small or stupid or like a burden. She just saw someone stranded, and she helped. That was the day I realized kindness doesn't always look like grand gestures or long speeches. Sometimes it's just showing up for someone quietly, without keeping score. And that woman in the blue car, she showed me the kind of person I wanted to be. I still don't know his name. It was February, cold and slushy, the kind of winter where even the streetlights seemed tired. I was working a part-time shift at a tiny coffee shop that barely had enough customers to justify keeping the lights on. The regulars were predictable. 2 college kids who always forgot their wallets, a woman who ordered tea and sat without drinking it, and the old man who read the paper like he was trying to memorize it. That day, we were dead quiet. No customers. My coworker had called out sick, so I was alone behind the counter, watching snow start to gather on the windowsills. I kept the radio on low just to fill the silence. Then he came in. Mid-30s, maybe? Big coat, no gloves. His hair was a little wet from the snow, and his eyes had that hollow look. Not tired, not angry, just far away. I smiled out of habit. He nodded and walked up to the counter. "Something warm," he said. I asked if he wanted coffee, tea, hot chocolate. Didn't seem to matter. He asked what I recommended. I said the mocha was good, especially with oat milk. He said sure. When I handed him the drink, he stared at it like I just passed a glass violin in his hands, like he didn't trust it not to break. He thanked me softly and sat by the window. I figured that was it. But 10 minutes later, I noticed something. He was crying. Not sobbing, just sitting there, eyes unfocused, tears running down his face in total silence. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't used to seeing people cry in public, and definitely not in a place as small as ours. I thought maybe I should say something, but I didn't want to intrude. So I walked over with a napkin and just said, "Refill's free if you want it." He looked up, and in that moment, something changed. I don't know what he saw in my face, or what broke through whatever wall he had around him, but he nodded, just once. Then he spoke, barely above a whisper. "She passed this morning, my wife." I didn't expect that. I didn't expect any of it. I sat down across from him, even though I wasn't supposed to. I didn't say anything, just listened. He told me about her, how they met at a bookstore, how she loved puzzles and hated olives, how she used to leave him little notes in his shoes before work. She made the world feel lighter, he said. We sat there for 20 minutes. The snow piled higher outside. The mocha went cold. Eventually he stood up. He thanked me again, not just for the drink, for listening, for being there. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. He pulled out a crumpled $5 bill and tried to pay. I pushed it back. "It's on me." He stared at the cup, then at me. "She would have liked you," he said, and then he left. I've never seen him again, never learned his name, but sometimes I think about him when the cafe is quiet and I see the snow tapping gently on the glass. I think about how that moment, small and fragile as it was, felt good. Like I got to hold someone's sadness with them, just for a little while. And maybe that helped. Maybe that's enough. I was 22, broke, and convinced the universe had it out for me. It was the winter after I dropped out of college. I just moved back to my hometown, tail between my legs, sleeping on my sister's couch while I picked up part-time shifts at a grocery store and tried not to think about how lost I felt. Everything felt temporary. My job, my plans, even me. There was one bus I took every morning to get across town to work. Route 41, the 6:20 a.m. It was the only one that ran early enough to get me to the store before my shift. I was never a morning person, but that bus was sacred. If I missed it, I was screwed. And then came that morning. My alarm didn't go off, or maybe it did, and I smacked it in my sleep. Either way, I woke up in a panic at 6:14 a.m. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. I grabbed my shoes, shoved on a coat, no socks, no breakfast, and sprinted out the door. I remember the cold hurting, not in a poetic way, just in a raw, stupid, sharp kind of way. My lungs burned, my ears stung, and as I turned the corner toward the stop, I saw the bus pulling up. Too far. I was too far. I waved anyway, flailing like an idiot, slipping on black ice, probably looking like a cartoon character about to wipe out. And then something I didn't expect happened. The bus driver saw me and waited. He didn't just pause for a second, he stayed. He opened the door and gave me this look like, "Come on, kid, I got you." I climbed aboard, gasping like I'd run a marathon. My breath fogged up the window next to me, and the driver, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and thick glasses, just nodded once, like we had an understanding. He never said a word. After that, I started noticing him more. Same face, same tiny smile every morning. One day I worked up the nerve to say thank you, told him I appreciated him waiting that morning. He just shrugged. We all miss alarms sometimes. And that was it. But from that moment on, it became our silent routine. He'd stop a little longer at my corner. I'd always give him a wave, sometimes with a coffee in my hand, sometimes half asleep, but he was always there. A few months later, I finally landed a better job. More hours, better pay, and no more 6 a.m. buses. On my last morning ride, I brought him a coffee. Just a cheap gas station one, but I wrote a quick note on the side with a marker. "Thanks for stopping." He smiled. Actually smiled this time, and took the cup like I had handed him something sacred. "Take care of yourself, alright?" he said, and that was the last time I saw him. My life moved on. I found an apartment, got promoted, made new friends. I still took buses sometimes, but not Route 41. Years passed. Until one night, maybe 5 years later, I was on a late ride home from work. The company holiday party had run long and I didn't want to spend money on an Uber, so I caught a city bus. As I climbed aboard, I recognized the voice. Same guy, a little older, still driving. I blinked. Route 41? Sometimes I bounce around these days. I sat behind him. He didn't say much, and neither did I. But as my stop approached, I stood up and said, "You know, I don't think I ever told you how much that meant. That morning, you stopping for me." He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Sometimes, we don't know how much someone needs us to wait. But I've been there. People waited for me too. I got off, heart a little fuller than before. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when I feel overwhelmed or like I'm falling behind, I think about that man. About how someone waited. Not because he had to, but because he saw a kid slipping in the cold and decided he could make it easier. And now, whenever I see someone running for a door, I hold it open. Because sometimes, the smallest pause can feel like the universe saying, "It's okay. You're not too late."